Assalamu alaikum, my darlings, and welcome back to your daily dose of Dragon Feather. I want everyone to meet Potat. Yay! Potat is the friend today, so he will be joining the stream. All right, today we are going to be talking about why I practice witchcraft and Islam. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about all of that, then don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to tap the screen and share the stream with your friends. If you're interested, Alex, welcome to your daily dose of Dragon Feather. I am just so happy to have you here. You literally make my whole day every single day. So I just want you to know that. Don't forget, I adore you. Okay, so we're just really having a chill stream today before I head over to the masjid for Ramadan. We are fasting and we have about 4 hours before we gotta break our fast. But before we do that, we just kind of wanted to get on here. Ooh, we lost Patat. Poor Patat. Here, he's back. Okay, so before we get into it, we really just wanted to jump on here and talk about a little bit more in depth about how I practice witchcraft and Islam, because if you haven't seen my previous stream, I recently came out of the closet as a Muslim witch. And this was, a lot of you guys had a lot of things to say, which is totally valid. You know, everybody's entitled to their opinions, right? But I just want everyone to know that, like, it's like, it was like potentially a little confusing. So we're just gonna like break it down today in today's episode a little bit more so we can, you know, clarify any questions that you guys might have. Currently tired. Hi, you're awesome. Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. Welcome to your daily dose of Dragon Feather. And Emery's, welcome to your daily dose of Dragon Feather. Rose, my dear, my darling, welcome to your daily dose of Dragon Feather. So if you have not seen my coming out video yet, I definitely recommend you watch my previous live stream. Love meeting you like this, older but been following you for years. Hell yeah, Richard, that's amazing. Welcome, Gabriel Hoffman, to your daily dose of Dragon Feather. This is Potat. He's going to be our friend for today's stream. He's absolutely perfect. I have never met a more perfect dragon stuffed animal in my life. He's very, like, he's just satisfying. I don't even know. And he's like, he looks like a sack of potatoes. Like, he's just potatoes. That's why I named him Potat. He's missing a tail, though, so I'm going to try and give him a tail. That made me very sad that Potat does not have a tail. But yeah, so let's just jump on into it, my friends. So I have been raised Mormon, just giving you guys the TLDR. I was raised Mormon. It was impressed upon me as a little girl that God was really important. I should believe in God, that, like, that is kind of the way to follow, right? It's really important for, you know, me as a kid, like when I was, when I was a little girl, it was really imperative that my family like made sure that I believed in God, right? And it mostly came from my grandparents, more so than my like parents. My mom has never really been involved in the religious thing, though she has like expressed a belief in God. But like my dad was the one who took me to church as a kid, and when my family got divorced, I would still, like, my dad had custody of me on the weekends specifically to take me to church. So there's that. Forgive me, but I thought the plushie was a pig. No, that's okay. He's okay. You could call him a pig. Tinkerbell, welcome to your daily dose of Dragon Feather. I love the last stream. I always love when people peacefully find what truly works for themselves, continuing to experience the beauty of life. Exactly, Tinkerbell. And that's really what I just wanted to come on here and discuss, because I get a lot of hate for, you know, being a witch, but I also get a lot of hate for, you know, being a witch who believes in God, and now I'm getting a lot of hate for being, like, being a Muslim witch. And there's just, like, I guess the haram police, as you could say, in my comment sections. But I hope everybody knows that that they don't have any power here. Like, only God can judge me, only God can judge you. And Allah and the Quran and all of the books honestly say that no one gets into paradise or heaven without the mercy of God. So I think we all need to really just kind of mind our own business and really kind of like work on what we want in our lives and do our best to be mindful and do our best to be respectful. And, you know, when we might make like mistakes or when we might have like conflicting, you know, feelings, to just like look into that and like own it, and like there's no reason for us to ever be hating on people for what they believe in. Like, I fundamentally feel like that is sinful. I think that, you know, trying to shame somebody for what brings them peace is deplorable. I really do feel that way. And when I was a little girl, the Mormon church was not very kind to me. I suffered a lot of religious abuse in the Mormon church. And because of that, I genuinely was pushed away from, you know, Mormonism, and I left the church, and that's how I found witchcraft. Have you ever worked with angels and magic? Yes, Gabriel. I'm getting into that really quickly because that's a huge part of my craft now when it used to not be. So growing up, I like, you know, moved away from that, and then I found witchcraft, and that's around the time that I started my YouTube channel, which was back in 2012. And ever since then, I've just been learning about world religions and learning about different pantheons and different faith-based practices around the world. And that is something that my dragon guardians have always wanted me to do, is just to learn. Like, that's kind of like the point of being a dragon witch, is to literally just learn as much as you can. And the way I see it, magic comes from God. Yes, Emery's, that is how I see it as well. I believe that, you know, God created all of the religions for us to, you know, test our faith. I really feel like it's really that simple. And it's like, people get so hung up on the details of like what you can and can't do, and it's just like they completely forget that we have free will to mess up and do things wrong as well. And I think that people really forget that too. Like, you can do things that people say you can't do in this life. You know that, right? God knows a sincere heart no matter the religion. Agreed, Richard. And this is something else that I also made me Muslim, because in the Quran it says that, and Allah always chooses who he admits into paradise. Like, with the final decision is with Allah. So like, Allah on the day of judgment could be like, oh, okay, well, guess what? We're all going to paradise. Like, do I think that'll happen? I don't know. I'm just a human being. I'm just doing my best, right? But like, you know, like at the end of the day, like that authority is with God and God alone. And like us debating that here in this worldly life is like means nothing. It actually means nothing. Because at the end of the day, we're not the ones with the authority ever. So as I practiced witchcraft, you know, as I, you know, studied more different religions around the world, I heard of Islam. And my first actual exposure to Islam was when I was at Universal Studios, believe it or not. I went to Universal Studios one time when I was like 13, and I was eating food with an ex of mine, and out of nowhere, this brother just breaks out his janamas, or his prayer mat, puts it on the floor in the middle of Universal Studios, and starts praying. And that, I will tell you guys right now, never left me. Watching that brother pray in the middle of an amusement park amused me. That he parked himself there. Ha, you see what I did there? No, but for real, I literally was like, what? Like, what is happening? Like, why is this man praying in the middle of an amusement park with screaming kids and roller coaster rides and just all of this chaos and like, what's the word? Like, cacophony everywhere. Like how did this person find God in that? I didn't understand. So that was my first exposure to Islam as a little girl. And then I heard about it here and there, you know, and I had Muslim friends a little bit here and there online. But eventually I ended up, you know, coming across the Palestinians suffering on my TikTok For You page, and that's what actually made me pick up the Quran. A huge misconception is that I reverted to Islam from my fiance, my soon-to-be husband. No, I did not. I found Islam before my fiance really started being actively practicing it. He was inspired by me learning about the religion and reading the English version of the Quran and sharing it with him to start practicing again, because he was raised Muslim. But he kind of like fell out of it for his own reasons. There's a lot of like strong language in the Quran, but I think people forget that like there's different audiences that are being addressed in the Quran. And there's the disbelievers, the hypocrites, and the believers. And as the way that I interpret the Quran, the believers are people of faith. It really mentions this over and over again. It also mentions not associating partners with Allah, don't get me wrong. But again, it also says that Allah is the one who can judge us. And only He and Him alone can decide who goes into paradise and who goes into heaven. I just realized A all-knowing God hears all prayer, no matter the religion. Richard, you're absolutely correct. Is he the same boyfriend you had when you started your channel? No, Richard. The boyfriend that I had when I started my channel unfortunately abused me a lot, and is a huge reason why I have to seek therapy, and I seek, you know, solace through certain practices of magic that I have. So let's talk about my witchcraft and what it looked like before I became Muslim. So when I was a little girl, I would practice pretty regularly. I would call upon, you know, the elemental dragon guardians from the DJ Conway books, Dancing with Dragons and Mystical Dragon Magic, things like that. And I didn't realize that one of these deities, Fafnir, was actually appropriated back then. And they were more so kind of just an example. They're more like of egregors than they are of like actual deities. But that's how my craft really like started with like ritualistic stuff, because like I had a phase where like in the very beginning where I was working with Isis specifically, or a set from Egyptian mythology. And also I had a quick brief moment on the channel where I was like Christian witch. And so that was probably like the Christian witch part was probably the closest to how my practice is now, except I don't work with like Jesus the way I did in my Christian witchcraft. That was wild. But like I work with, you know, you'll see some of these like what are they called, like streamers, or some of these like tarot readers, they'll do readings where they talk about like messages from God through their readings. That's very much on the same like wavelength of like what I do. By the way, you're an awesome singer. Oh, thank you. My grandparents are Christian, but they still support my belief in magic and the power of crystals. That's really sweet that they're really like supportive. What is this? Carlin says, legally and actually one can't discourage and degrade somebody without setting a bad example. They're hypocritically berating. It just provides violence, and violence can't prevail. Yeah, no, exactly. Carlin, that's kind of the whole thing that I really have taken away from practicing, you know, Islam, is that I'm just a much more peaceful person. I used to use my witchcraft when I felt like I was wronged, or for example, remember that ex that you asked about? Was it Richard who asked me about that? So actually the first curse I ever did was on that particular ex, and it backfired in ways, and it worked. I mean, like, the curse was, as long as you are ugly on the inside, you'll be ugly on the outside. And he gained a lot of weight, a lot of acne, just, he went really ugly, and then started to work on himself, because that particular ex, him and I ended up getting back together later along the lines, and we're with each other again for another like 4 years before I met my fiance. And basically that curse that I did on him is something that like I used to do to people when I was wronged, and like, or when I had like, you know, my abusers hurt me, I would curse them or hex them. And like I like literally don't regret these practices, but I'm just saying that the way that my craft has changed since becoming Muslim, 333 on the clock, is that I simply pray instead, and I seek refuge in Allah from the people who wish to bring me harm. And I focus on myself, and I put more energy into myself, and I don't spend energy on other people. So before I became Muslim, my witchcraft was very much like, it could go towards anyone, right? Like, and since becoming Muslim, my witchcraft has become purely for me, purely for reworking my nervous system, purely for balancing and grounding myself in a way that I feel falls short with Islam. As much as I love Islam, like nothing feels like dancing naked in the middle of a like circle with all these candles and incense. Like, trust me, that is one of my favorite practices. And that's kind of where it changes, right? Like, I used to really believe that like I was talking to certain deities when I was a little girl, and now I just don't believe that anymore. I think I'm talking to myself through my intuition, through certain, I guess you could say, channels, which are the deities. Those are like the channels that I change on the radio, if you will, of my intuition in order to gain certain messages or interpret reality a different way. This is how my craft has changed just since becoming Muslim. I know that like my dragon guardians, like pickle chips, would be considered a gray area, and again, the only one who can judge me is Allah, and may he make my journey easy. But you know, it says, the Quran says that we're discouraged from speaking to jinn. People call my dragon guardians jinn, and honestly, it's just, there's just a lot to unpack in there, and I'm more than happy to make a video about that in the future. But it says, I have a question. How do you keep continuing in your craft even when it feels difficult? I took a long break and I'm currently trying to reconnect with my spirituality. Yeah, so the thing is like, I really feel like the whole point of witchcraft is never to be perfect. The social media really makes it feel like you have to hit every full moon, that you have to hit every like Sabbath, or you have to hit every like, you know, dark moon, you got to do these rituals, you got to do these spells, or you're like not like a witch enough, you're not valid enough, and that's just, they don't subscribe to that. That's how I really feel like I can utilize and lean into my craft now. Like, I don't judge myself if I'm not practicing my witchcraft, because my witchcraft has just become more potent and focused since I've become Muslim, in the sense that like I really only use my witchcraft as a last resort now. And like in the like ritualistic spell casting sense, right? Like I have like a magical perspective on life. That's a little different. But I'm talking about like the actual like textbook witchcraft. But there's also like little things that I do too, right? So like, you know, stirring your intentions into your tea. Like, I know we consider that witchcraft, but some people don't consider that witchcraft. So I think that this is where the huge like disconnect happens, is that like everybody pretty much everywhere is defining witchcraft differently, and that is the fundamental issue, because certain people think that witchcraft is one thing while some people think witchcraft is another thing, and that is just, it's just kind of shitty. What a cute plushy unicorn. It's actually a dragon. Look at him, he's attached. See his little wings, his little horns. I love him. He's like my little child right now. It's okay, it would be fun to give him a little unicorn horn too. Witchcraft is all about understanding yourself and the universe around you. Yes, I agree, Richard. And see, the definition of witchcraft within the Quran is a very old definition of witchcraft. It's very much more like the definition of deception, of illusions, of conjuring, of relying on supernatural forces, of, you know, insert anything like that. When nowadays witchcraft is so much more than that. I think that, you know, people forget that words evolve as humans do, right? And the word witchcraft especially is one of those words that evolves all over the time, all over the place, no matter where you are. Your voice is more unshakable as you talk now out of the closet. Love to hear it, fellow dragon spirit. Oh, Tinkerbell. It was really hard for me to come out of the closet, you guys. I've been having a really hard couple days, mostly because of just a lot of like long-term people turning really negative and nasty to me. And let me tell you guys something. I realized the hard way that like I've actually, like, coming out of the closet as Muslim, I've genuinely been like Muslim witch, right? I've been treated better by Muslims than witches, which blows me away. I have been more encouraged to talk by them. And don't get me wrong, a lot of the hatchlings are like in my corner too. I'm not trying to say there's no one in my corner, so please don't forget. Please don't misunderstand me. But hi, I'm from Bangladesh. I gathered a little knowledge about black magic. What are the nastier things you have to do for witchcraft? Like, I heard it is directly related to dishonoring Islam. Yes, thank you for asking, my friend. How do I say your name, sir? Is it Regib Noor? So the way that you are describing black magic is actually comes from, you know, Christian times, when the Crusades happened and slavery started taking hold, where basically anyone who was Christian or Catholic would associate people who were people of color specifically, and their religious or spiritual practices would be considered evil, or they were demonized, and that's where we get the term black magic. So the way that it dishonors Islam in the terms of witchcraft is when you invoke things other than Allah, right? So that's how it's forbidden, right? So when I say, if I were to believe that if I don't cast this spell, then I will not be successful, for example, that is considered shirk in Islam, because I am putting divine power into the witchcraft. That is not what I do in my practice, okay? So in my practice, I view that all of the rituals, all of the spells, all of the anything that I do in my craft comes directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it always, everything comes from like Allah in my like Muslim perspective. The way that the witchcraft comes into play for me is through a journey within. The best way I could describe it is Sufism or Islamic mysticism. That is something that I personally like was really inspired by, because like Sufism is about going within yourself and, you know, practicing dhikr or remembrance of Allah, and seeing like a more like, it's like a more mystical way of like looking at it, right? But the way that I practice witchcraft now is that it's always backed in science to regulate my nervous system, as I'm a survivor of many different kinds of abuse. And one thing that helps me regulate my nervous system, one thing that helps empower me, is ritualistic magic, right? So when I do these magic things, like, or like rituals, you could say, like, as a kid, when I practiced witchcraft before I was Muslim, I would like light candles in honor for different deities, and I would call upon them to be with me in my space. That is just not how my practice works anymore. So now as Muslim, when I do these like rituals and I light candles, I simply light candles for creating an atmosphere that feels good, that makes me feel comfortable in here, that makes me feel magical in here, right? It's not about who's in the circle with me. It's about how do I feel in the circle now. It's all about, you know, the like chanting that I do is sometimes more closely attuned to affirmations, right? And I will include things like EFT tapping in my witchcraft now. So like doing like, it's safe to be in my body, it's safe to be, you know, all of that. So there's like just so many things that I think go into that, you know, that there's nuance in it. And that's kind of the whole point, right? Like, you're not supposed to rely on spell casting for like, you know, getting certain outcomes. You're not supposed to rely on it to, you know, embolden yourself, or to, I guess, like, for lack of a better word, like depending on it, you know what I mean? And I use witchcraft as a, yes, I still say geeky, cheeky, and freaky. It is still my catchphrase. Yeah, I remember your older videos, way different, yes. So, you know, magic just kind of like grows with a practitioner. And like, I think a lot of people, they have this view of me from when I was a child, and they think that my witchcraft as a child is still the way that I practice witchcraft today, and that just like completely disregards the fact that I'm a human being who grows. You know, like, come on, guys. If I had the same practice and it never improved, I would be concerned. So there's that, which is why, like, I think people also just have their own experience of witchcraft and what that means to them. And also, like, different cultures around the world are going to just like define it differently, and that is kind of what makes it confusing. So I also don't cast magic on people anymore. That's something how my my practice changed since becoming Muslim. Is like, I used to like cast spells on people sometimes, and I just don't do that anymore. I don't feel like that's halal. Used to watch you on YouTube, recently rediscovered you on TikTok. Yay! Dude, I love TikTok so much, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's been really fun being on that app. It's just such a different type of environment to create content. We both know there are bad apples in any belief system. Yes. Real witches support study of all cultures and faiths. Yes, exactly, Rose. You're exactly right. Dear, please don't worry. People who hate you for coming out would never judge you based on what you practice. Aw, thank you. That's really sweet of you to say. How can you tell you're actually astral projecting and not lucid dreaming? See, that is kind of like, that is something that is so difficult to define, because like that is going to be just such a subjective experience for everybody. The best way I can describe it is that astral projection is outside of your body, lucid dreaming is within your mind. So that is the best I could say for that. But some spells can be cast on others for blessings and protection, though. That's true, but in my personal practice, I don't even do that anymore. Because like my witchcraft has like completely transformed itself into healing me. That's the best way. It's like regulating me. Like my craft is mine now. Like I used to use my witchcraft for anything, right? Like it was like a way that I navigated life, but like now my witchcraft is so sacredly my own. And sometimes I will use my witchcraft to, you know, help me cope with just what's going on, you know, in the life that we have. And like I will always light candles for like people who pass away, right? Like so like I'll light candles for the people who pass in Gaza or for the people who pass in Congo. Like this is like, but that's not like witchcraft, you know what I mean? Like the difference is that like the actual spells that I'm casting, like the actual rituals that I'm doing and performing are meticulously crafted to help me overcome struggles in my life now. And that is the difference. Like that's what makes it more a craft, right? Like than it does like spirit work, right? Like, or what's the word? Literally anything, like, you know, even like divination, like is different for me now because like I feel like it's just a tool for me to like, you know, use my intuition. It's a tool to exercise my intuition. Like I said, my craft is all about me now. Like I guess you could say it's very self-centered in the sense that like it's all about like my experience and how I can improve myself and how I can get in touch with myself, if that makes sense. So you've been successful at scrying? I've tried. Yes, I love scrying. It's the great attitude. I also focus on making myself and my life better. No, exactly. No, exactly. Like, because like, I feel like that's kind of what witchcraft always has been too. Like witchcraft was born out of, you know, in most scenarios, a need for protection against oppression. It's very commonly done that way. So that is why I also know that like if I have the mercy to like see the nuance in people's like practices and faiths and stuff like that, then if I only use my logic and reasoning, by logic and reasoning, like God and Allah, like his mercy is only far greater than my own, right? Like I don't know what God knows, and that's the whole point. And like this is why I will never engage, I will never make content about you being wrong in your beliefs. I fundamentally disagree with this kind of content style. You will never ever see me leaving comments or making comments about how, you know, people are going to hell. You will never ever see me shaming people for what they believe. I am always just curious to learn about others' perspectives and others' faith, and I'm only here to share my own. And the dragons that I've worked with my whole life have always encouraged me to learn about all different faiths and practices. It's never been just one thing. They're always about studying the world to gain a better perspective, to gain a bigger point of view. And that's never going to stop for me, especially now that I'm Muslim. If anything, it's only made me want to, you know, work harder at these studies. It's only made me want to dive deeper into them. And since becoming Muslim, the way that I connect with my dragons is so much more healthy, right? Like I have like met people who think they have like full-on like friendships with their dragon guardians, and like I'm not here to disregard that type of relationship. I'm just saying for me it was starting to affect my mental health in a negative way, and that's why like I don't work with like, you know, spirits like that. Like the only ones that I like kind of still do that with are my primary dragon guardians, but again, I don't talk to them like they're family. Like I use my intuition to interpret different visions they give me as a way to translate into English when I like channel messages from them, for example, or when I, you know, work with them, for example. It's never been about having like, and I call my dragons like my family, like my spirit family, and I still mean that, but I don't have relationships with them like I do human beings. Like, please, can we please like understand that? Martin, hello, good to see you. Welcome to your daily dose of Dragonfeather. Very interesting experience. Hell yeah. Speaking of spirits, I actually saw this ghost of an old woman standing over me while I was sleeping. Oh, I've heard a lot of people have a lot of experiences like that. I'm aware that idolarity is something that is frowned upon in Islam. If I have understood correctly, yes. So I'm curious if you plan on setting up any altars in the future, or is this something you avoid now? Yes, Chloe, I love this question. Thank you so much for asking, dear. So basically, I still have like altars, and this is how I interact with altars differently. So before, I used to use my altars as a way of like honoring and like venerating my like spirits, right? Or like the dragons that I work with, where now the altars that I create for, say, like Tiamat, or like my draconic altar, or like altars for Aphrodite or Hecate, these altars are not to idolize these deities. I don't idolize these deities. I learn through, okay, so like their stories, their myths, their archetypes, their themes, their lessons, that is what I tune into. So the best way that I could describe it now is that these deities are different channels on the radio, which is my intuition. So my intuition is the radio, the deities are the channels that I change in order to touch in with myself, right? So like, or hear where my what my heart is trying to tell me exactly. And so these altars that I create now, while they look like, you know, idols, and like I have statues on them, don't get me wrong, and while to perhaps like a Muslim eye they would look like idolarity, the truth is that when I sit at these altars, I'm not lighting the candles to bring forth a spirit. I'm lighting the candles to go on a journey with said archetype, with said face of the divine, if you will. And that means I'm simply going into a deep trance-like state with the symbolism, with the stories, with the overarching themes of said deities, and trying to utilize that in a way that helps me improve upon the things that I've struggled with in my life. So for example, I have really struggled a lot with like I've been just sexually abused a lot, and I don't want to get into it. I'm just gonna say that it's been really hard for me to cope with that, and the only way I've been able to cope with that is through, one, knowing that through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the people who hurt me will be punished. That genuinely helps me heal. And also through my witchcraft, where when I genuinely feel like for example, sometimes I'll have nightmares. This is a symptom of my PTSD. I'll have nightmares reliving the things that I've been through, and instead of letting that ruin my day, I will go straight into a witchcraft ritual that helps me, you know, journey through it and get through it and process it in a way that doesn't stick to me throughout the day, if that makes sense. So do you look at them like different aspects of Allah? No, Emrys. I look at all these different deities as creations of Allah. I look at them as different aspects of myself. Does that make sense? Not everybody really understands what an altar is about exactly, Richard, and I think that's kind of like what like my channel's really like I want to like share here on my channel, because like, you know, a lot of people are like, how dare you like mix the two, blah blah blah, and it's just like, you really don't understand, and that's why you're fundamentally pissed off, you know what I mean? Like, you know, we absolutely only bow to Allah, right? Like Allah is God, Allah is king in my practice, and in my perspective and in my experience. Even when I didn't know Islam, like I always like resonated with the source of reality being God, or like God being the creator and everything else is creation. What do you mean aspects of yourself? So like Aphrodite is the aspect of myself that is beautiful, that is loving, that is just everything Aphrodite is, where on the flip side, like Lilith is the aspect of me that wants to burn the world to the ground, where on the other side, Hecate is the aspect of me that is magical and whimsical. Does that make sense? Because like I think everybody is entitled to their own like religious experience. I will die on this hill. That's what I believe the First Amendment like means in the Constitution of America, is the right to religious freedom. You know what I mean? You have to understand that everybody is entitled to how they want to practice. You know what I mean? I'm not home, but hello from my personal account. Hello, Mumsy. I hope you're doing well. They also don't understand the word Wicca. It came from the ancient word Wicca, which meant wise. Yes, thank you, Richard. Dropping the facts today. Yeah, so a lot of people think that like Wicca is like a religious practice, not realizing that Wicca, the word Wicca actually evolved from the Anglo-Saxon word Wicca, meaning wise, or cunning. And that's kind of funny to me, because like Gerald Gardner appropriated the term Wicca into making it a religion, and that's how we have, you know, the neo New Age Wicca, right? Goddess, God. Oh, sorry, we lost your comment. Anyway, let's see. The way she was talking before made me say that. I'm not sure. I missed what she said, my darlings. Real love is real love no matter the religious belief system. I completely agree, Richard, 100%. My name is Tomoy, Tonmoy. Do you pray? Yes, I do. I want to know how peaceful it feels to bow before the true God. May Allah grant you paradise in this life and the hereafter. Also, why are you so cute? Mashallah. Oh, you're so sweet, brother. So yes, I would love to talk about it. My favorite thing in this life is Islamic prayer. I do not care how much hate that catches me, but let me tell you, I will probably start crying when I talk about it. Like, just... I was really forced to pray in a way that didn't feel right when I was like a little girl in the Mormon church, and it just really like fucked up my relationship with God. Mashallah for Islam, because it healed my relationship with God. And when I pray, I feel lost on my period when I can't pray. And like, for those of you guys who don't know, like in Islam, we're commanded when we're bleeding to not pray, to rest. We're also commanded to fast, to not fast, because it's not good for our bodies. And when I try to pray on my period, it hurts, and I understand why I'm not supposed to, you know? And that's where my witchcraft comes in, because my witchcraft doesn't require the bending down, right? It's the bending down that deeply hurts me when I'm on my period. And so when I'm able to do these witchcraft rituals on my period and then return to prayer, you have no idea how much this balances me and grounds me and just makes me feel like a whole human being, you know? Like, I want people to just, like, follow their hearts and, like, remember that if you struggled and you experienced abuse in religion, even if it was Islam, it was always the humans who hurt you, okay? Like, this is something that my dragon guardians told me. Because as a little girl, when I ventured into witchcraft and into paganism, and I started, you know, working with all these different deities, I really struggled with God for a little bit there. And I used to say, God is dead, fuck God, like this, like I said the worst things. And it was only because of how hurt I was. And it was only because of, like, how abandoned I felt by God, not realizing that he never left me. It was this version of God that I was served, honestly, force-fed down my throat by the Mormon church that just was not real. That wasn't God. That wasn't God. That was control. That was trying to force me to stop questioning things. No, Islam has taught me to learn. Islam encourages you to learn. It's about a privilege to learn, you know? And when I feel like recharged when I pray, right? And especially when I go to the masjid, I've never, ever, ever experienced any place on earth that feels holy the way that a masjid does. And that's why I'm Muslim, mashallah. Like, and if people want to hate me for that, like, that is you. That is your thing. Like, I am not what you think I am. Like, you are what you think I am. And if you think I'm an evil person for just sharing my love for Islam and sharing my love for witchcraft, I really just feel like people need to look in the mirror. Like, why are you in my comment section being vile? Like, how you describe deities as a part of you intrigues me, as I see big G God as being within us, beyond us, and all around us. Do you see God this way? If so, how do you separate deities versus God internally? Yes, Chloe, I see Allah this very same way. So the only way it's a little different is that, like, Allah for me is like my creator, where the different deities like Hecate or like Persephone or like Thor, for example, these I feel are different personifications of humanity. I feel like they're the different personifications of human experiences and human lessons and human themes of life. They're also different personifications of the forces of nature, of God's creation. That is really key here. And the Quran says that Allah is between our hearts and our souls. I love Islam, you don't understand. I'm always crying about Islam. But the difference is that like Allah is between all of the different versions of myself. He is the glue that holds all of the deities together within me. Does that make sense? When did you start practicing Islam? I started practicing Islam in November of 2023, and I've been in the closet here on my channel for over a year because you're the exact opposite of evil. Bless you, Emery's. You're so sweet. But in November of 2023, which was right after the Palestinian genocide started, because my journey to Islam is very much intertwined with the Palestinians. I had such a horrible, destroyed relationship with God after Mormonism and just the way I was treated as a witch, that when I saw the Palestinians losing everything, including their families, and they were praising God, I was like, well, what is happening? That is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. How do they have that faith? I had never seen faith like that. And so that's why I picked up the Quran, you know, and like, now I just feel like life has just opened up for me in a way that like I never expected it to, you know? Do you pray 5 times a day, or are you working up to that? Yes, I pray 5 times a day. Sometimes I miss my prayers, you know, because I sleep in, or because, you know, life happens, right? But it is very, like, I notice it when I don't pray 5 times a day, Mia. Like, I become more distraught, I become more anxious, and especially on my period, I really miss my prayers. Although it's genuinely physically too painful for me to pray on my periods, and that again is where my witchcraft comes in. So on my periods, I will do my practice with my, and I always felt more magical on my period anyway, like growing up, that's always been a thing. So like now I have a lot of trauma associated with my periods too, and I'll talk about it one day when I'm ready. But the thing is that like when it comes to my like periods, I just kind of like completely shift my practice, right? Like, so I'll like essentially take a break from Islam. I'll still like, you know, like I'm not fully taking a break from Islam, don't get me wrong, like I'm still like saying alhamdulillah and like my du'as and stuff, but like I'm saying the more like active practice of it, right? So like I'm not like praying 5 times a day on my period, excuse me. I'm not like, sometimes I'll go to the masjid, but honestly I really don't go to the masjid when I'm on my period because I genuinely feel like shit. Like, for those of you guys who don't know, I have chronic periods, and sometimes my periods last for 14 days. Sometimes I have 2 periods in a month. So I really struggle with prayer in that sense. But the unfortunate thing is that when I am in agony from my period and all I want to do is pray and all I want to do is feel close to God, that is where my witchcraft comes in. Because I'm able to cast my circle, I'm able to meditate in a way that still is scientifically evident, and now I just do it with God with me. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Man, you guys really got me crying today. Damn, I told myself I wasn't gonna cry, but I'm not gonna judge myself for it, because my dragon guardians tell me the real dragons aren't afraid to cry, because crying is an alchemical process. It transforms us. It transmutes our pain into healing every single time. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippines 3:14. Love that. We love Jesus on this channel. Peace be upon him. His teachings are some, I feel, that are entirely the most misunderstood within this world, and are some of the most magical teachings that we have on this planet. Can I speak? Jesus can present himself in whatever way serves people most, even if they call him Allah. Yeah, so Richard, that's kind of awkward because the Quran specifically states that Jesus is not Allah. So like, that is why like I follow the Quran as the word of God. I really believe the Quran is the word of God in the sense that I believe Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was channeling the words of God through Archangel Jibreel, and that is what Muslims believe. No, they don't call him Yeshua either. We call Jesus Isa in the Quran. So Jesus is Isa, and then Moses is Musa in the Quran, and both of those prophets are talked about more in the Quran than actual Muhammad himself, peace be upon him. It's awkward, but most religion is. You know what, Richard? I'm giving you that one. That made me laugh so hard. That made me laugh so hard. Thank you for that. I believe it is Jewish people who call Allah, who call Jesus Yeshua. Or do they call him Yahweh? Like, you know what? We're gonna just move past that. All I'm gonna say is that in Islam, it's not Yeshua. They call him Isa in the Quran. A Sufi Muslim said Jesus is called Yeshua. Oh, okay. Well then, I mean, I'm not gonna debate that. Nope, not gonna debate that. I'm just saying that in the Quran, the version that I have, the English version that I have, calls him Isa. So that's all I can say, just a dude. But I do appreciate you sharing. But anyway, successful indeed is the one who purifies himself and remembers the name of his Lord and prays. Surah Al-Allah, 87, 14 through 15. Congrats, you're successful now. I'm going to pray Fajr. Did my Sari? I'll pray for you. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. I am curious. Questions often explain away unfavorable parts of the Bible by stating it's man's interpretation of God's word rather than God's first-hand words. Do Muslims feel the same with the Quran? What do you mean exactly? So are you saying, like, for example, like, I'm trying to think of an example to use this with. Because, like, I don't think I know. I don't know if I understand your question. Because I mean, at least the Muslims that I know, they, like, the Quran encourages you to, like, question it. I think that's the difference, right? Like, the Quran encourages you to question it, and it'll tell, like, the Quran says, try and produce something like the Quran, you will fail. And then it also says, like, question the Quran, you will fail, kind of thing. Interesting, I guess, but, like, I guess I need to do more research on that one, Chloe, because I feel like I do not know enough about, like, the way that Christians, like, spiritually bypass the bullshit in the Bible and what happens in the, like, Muslim community. So I will definitely be getting back to you about that one. I lost count on how long I've been following you for, but I absolutely love the fact that you are here still sharing your journey. Continue to never be afraid to unapologetically be yourself. Stephanie, Joe, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that. Was so anxious coming out of the closet as Muslim. And I have to understand, and something that I've been learning the hard way is that a lot of people have preconceived ideas of Islam, and because of that, they're going to automatically view me in a certain way once they realize I'm Muslim. And that will never, ever be my fault, because that is, like, them projecting on me, right? Like, I have to understand that my only business in this life is between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and between me and my good deeds, and between me and my bad deeds, and that's it. That's the only thing that matters in this life to me now. It's really simplified my practice. It's made, it's definitely made it potent. Do you know what I mean? In the sense that it's like, you know, when I do practice my witchcraft now, without a doubt, it works overnight, if not faster, because it's focused, right? It's not like a shot in the dark. It's not an experiment like it used to be, but you have to understand that my witchcraft wouldn't have gotten to the stage that it has now without over a decade of practice. I work every single day. every single day at this stuff. What I can say is that throughout the Bible, angels are presented with the message, do not be afraid, because they comfort and bring hope, instead of the angel Jibril or Allah was a spirit of. No, that's kind of like what I've like come to like understand, is that like angels are really just kind of like here to bring the messages of God and to watch over us and to, you know, just be here, you know. People think they must get all their facts accurate. They don't. People don't have to be perfect. Exactly, Richard. Like, and this is another thing too, like my practice with witchcraft in Islam, I'm sure there's some places where it's a gray area, where some people could consider it sinful. And you know what? No matter what you think about my practice, it still is irrelevant about your opinion. Why? Because last time I checked, you're not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you won't be judging me on Judgment Day. Like, you're not the one who's testing me. Like, it's Allah who's testing me. Like, Allah's testing you too, and you focusing on my test is weird, okay? That's weird, right? Like, well, it's none of my business, honestly, like what you believe, what you go through, why you do what you do, any of that. The only time it becomes my business is if you start hurting other people, right? Would you consider your practice to be a form of Islamic mysticism? Yes, Chloe. And this is like when I talk to Islamic scholars about how I practice witchcraft, and when I talk to just Muslims about how I practice witchcraft, the way that the Quran defines witchcraft is different, unfortunately, than the way that witches define witchcraft. I know. And the type of like witchcraft that I'm practicing, that our community as pagans and witches define it as witchcraft, is genuinely not considered witchcraft in the Quran. It's complicated. Like, it's really complicated. Jesus would definitely be for Team Azura. Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. Salam alaikum from Sweden. Sќuülĉɔ절ዀ, your name is so cool. What? Welcome to your daily dose of dragon feather, my dear. I hope you are having fun with the dragons, okay? Honestly, this little dude would be cool, named Sќuülĉɔ절ዀ as well. But this is Potat, so I hope you like Potat. The Christian's own Bible says nothing can separate us from the love of God. Yeah, exactly, Richard. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are they doing, bro? It's like, it's just wild to me. You know what I mean? Like, and if people think that me just showing up, sharing my truth, you know, about my practice is offensive, like, that is just wild to me. Because, like, I could never be offended by someone's practice unless it, like, killed people, or unless it, like, forced people's beliefs, or forced people to believe a certain way. That's, like, the only reason I would ever, like, shit talk someone's practice, right? But, like, if someone's coming on the internet just to share their perspective of their religion or their spirituality or their faith-based anything, like, and it's coming from a place of love, and it's coming from a place of, you know, like, understanding and respect, and a place that's, like, not hurting anyone else and not forcing anyone else to do anything, like, that will never ever be sinful, period. I don't care. I will die on that hill, and I will always defend people's right to their religious freedom, especially now that I'm a Muslim. That is, like, one of the biggest things that is reiterated in the Quran, is how oppressing people is worse than killing them. And do you think forcing people, and also you're not supposed to force people to practice Islam according to the Quran, because Allah guides who he wills. And so that's why people who are just goofy as fuck, like, you can be as goofy as fuck as you want to in my comments, you can be as mad or whatever as you want in my comments, but that's never going to change my faith. That's never going to change the practices that are real for me, and that's never going to change me from speaking up about it, because, like, there's a lot of people out there who practice witchcraft and who love God and who are struggling because of that. There are so many people who are out there who love their practice of witchcraft, who love their practice with, like, Hecate or all these other deities, but they also feel a huge void in their hearts because they love God and they don't know how to have God in their life because everybody tells them that God is not theirs. Sinful. Sinful for you to say God doesn't belong to somebody when Allah created all of us. And so that's why I will say there's always going to be good and bad people in every faith-based practice, but the practice itself is not evil unless it tells you to kill people. Like anyone who practices neo-Nazi ideology, that shit's evil, right? Because it tells you that like you should kill people. Like, no. Like people think that like Islam tells you to kill people. Like, no, only in self-defense. Only in self-defense. And guess what else? People will use this religion to oppress people, just like people will use Christianity to oppress people, just like people will use anything. People will use anything. You know what I mean? Yes, I know. Did you experience more bigotry as a Christian witch or now as a Muslim witch, specifically from the witchcraft community? And why do you think this is? Chloe, that's a great question. I actually experience way more hate as a Muslim witch than I do as a Christian witch. And I simply believe that is because Islam, the way that it was preserved, the Quran, there's no like room for debate. It's the same book across the board in Arabic. And it's like a tradition that's been kept for so long that there hasn't really been a lot of like progression in terms of like how things are defined, right? Like there's like not really anyone who are having conversations in the Islamic world about like what actual like is the definition of witchcraft. That's not really happening because that's not considered the focus of the religion. The focus of the religion has always been Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think that the reason why I get so much hate as a Muslim witch now, especially from the witchy community, is not only because of how most of the people who watch me in the witchy community are from America, the United States. We have so much anti-Islam content and propaganda here that people are pretty much inherently Islamophobic if you're raised in America and you don't do anything to kind of exercise yourself out of that. Unless you have had friends that are Muslim or you were exposed to it somehow other than the propaganda. That was not the case for me. I genuinely grew up thinking that people who had like the turbans on their head were evil people. Like that is because of the propaganda I was like subjected to within my school during 9/11. So because of that, like I think that this is where a lot of the hate comes from. A lot of people think that Islam came from, you know, like a pedophile who wanted to oppress people, and like no, like Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, delivered the Quran like really because like his people were being oppressed, and I think people forget that as well. People who force their religion on others need to remember God gave us all free will. Yeah, thank you. Like that's the whole point. Like and the Quran says this too, you know what I mean? The Quran says like had Allah willed it, like, and I quote, and had we willed it, we could have made everybody one group of believing people. But humans have a nature to literally disobey and like do their own thing. Like we have it's in human nature to follow our own hearts and paths, like, and make mistakes doing that. Like that's how we learn. Like that's what makes us human, okay? And like again, like Allah created the world the way he did. And if he wanted us all to be Muslim, then the only religion on the world would be Islam. But that's not the point, is it? No, the point is that we have free will, and this life is a test of faith, and that's why we have access to all of what we do. And like people who've never been exposed to Islam, like they of course will be judged differently than the people who have been, or the people who, you know, comprehend Islam, and it's just different, right? And a lot of people are afraid of the word judge because in today's society, being judged is very negative experience and very traumatizing experience. And something that I think people will see is that they're going to be judged, and because of that, because of the experiences that they have being judged, because of the experience that they have like in this like dunya, or in this life, that is what's going to inform the way that they interpret anything. That is just human nature, okay? That's why we all have different perspectives and points of view, which is why I'm so curious in learning about everybody's faith, because like everybody experiences it so differently. Have you looked into Sufism, mysticism, or Shiri? Yes, I have. Psychedelica. I love Sufism. It's really beautiful. Although it didn't like personally like resonate with me as like my path that I was gonna follow, it definitely made me realize that my craft, like my witchcraft within Islam, was pretty much already kind of like that. In the sense that like ever since I became Muslim, my witchcraft like shifted from being an external force to an internal force. So there's that. But anyway, back to the judgment thing. Like, the Quran states over and over and over again how Allah's mercy is always above his wrath and his judgment. His mercy is always superior to that. And I just feel like I need to remind people that. So there's that. But it says, it was only about 4 years ago when I started to reintroduce male deities into my faith craft, and I haven't been able to do it for years due to personal trauma as a kid. Stephanie, yeah, that's exactly why I love Islam so much, because I really never connected with God deities. When I was Wiccan, I tried to work with many different like God deities, never worked out for me. So it really, the only like way I was able to work with like a male deity was through the perspective of a dragon. So like the only like males on my spirit team would be dragons, like back then. Now I work with like the whole spectrum of it because of just how I've like reorganized it, but let me explain why. So I know that like the language that we use to refer to Allah, we use the he pronouns, but that's because that is the dominant pronoun within Arabic, and within the Quran it states over and over and over again how Allah is above gender. Actually, Allah created gender, so Allah is not neither male nor female, nor like non-binary, above all of that, right? So like it's like almost considered like shirk to associate the male with Allah. Like that is literally associating partners with Allah, which is the gravest sin in Islam, because everything in this dunya, or in this reality, this earthly realm, is creation. Okay, that means that everything here was created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That means everything we find here is what Allah created for us to enjoy, not what Allah is, if that makes sense. So that's what healed my relationship with God, because so that's what I mean by like healed my relationship with God, because I was raised to believe that God was a male and that I was worshiping a male, and that I'll never subscribe to that. Thank you. So when I realized that the creator was above a male, like above masculine and feminine, above God and goddess in like the male and female sense, immediately changed my life. Yeah, it's because of the language, not because God is male. Yes, exactly. JK, coming in with the facts, my bestie. What do you mean with witchcraft? Okay, so I don't mix witchcraft into Islam. That Islam is perfect. That is like the belief is Muslims, because like Islam, the way it's been preserved, we don't need to improve upon it. Like that, no, we don't do that. That would be considered cultural appropriation. So when I practice Islam, I'm practicing it by the book traditionally. I am going to be doing, the prayers. I'm going to be doing the zakat, which is donation. That's a part of Muslim belief, is that we must donate part of our like provisions from God, or our finances, our resources. That is a commandment. And then I believe in the angels now, which is something I'll get into in just a second, because I used to not really have a huge focus on angels in my practice, and now they are a huge core center focus of my craft. Like angel magic is really important to me. I think it's one of the most beautiful forms. I just got bit by my cat. Sorry, I didn't realize you were sitting on the chair. No, poor thing. But yeah, so like now the angel magic is very important to me. But the whole thing is like, when it comes to witchcraft as a Muslim, like I'm not invoking like other deities or idols in the sense that like I feel like I need to call upon them in order to bring forth something in my life. No, I believe that Allah created all of these idols as a way for me to better understand myself, period. Like when I like do my channeled messages on my channel, for example, like when I do Hecate or Lilith or whoever I'm going to in the future, or who have already done so, like the way that most people in the witchcraft niche create channeled messages is they present it like they're talking to these deities, and that is not my relationship with these that's just not my relationship with like Hecate and all of that. So I'm gonna use this. I've said it again a little bit, but I'll say it again now. But like the best way I can describe it is that like my intuition is like the channel, right? Or like the radio, sorry. My intuition is like the radio that receives information. And the channel that I tune into, or tune the radio to, right? So different frequencies that I tune my intuition radio to is the deities, right? So like I'll use the lens of Hecate to interpret my intuition, or I'll use the lens of Lilith to interpret my intuition, or I'll use the lens of Pickle Chips, my dragon guardian, to interpret my intuition. And that is the difference. That is the difference. It says, as far as donating part of your provisions, how does it go if you don't have enough for yourself? For instance, if you can only afford 1 meal a day for yourself. So zakat is always supposed to be like a percentage of what you make, but if you don't make enough to donate, then doing things like donating your time. So for example, I'll do like free readings on this channel, because ever since I've been back to this channel, I've been Muslim. I've just been in the closet about it, and me doing my free readings on my channel live is part of an act of community service. I also am not really selling anything right now in terms of like a course. Like, everybody is more than welcome to message me on Discord, send me a question. I'm more than happy to answer you for free. Like, that's because it is my act of worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to offer you the wisdom that He has provided me with, right? Because in the Quran, it says that wisdom and knowledge is a privilege and a provision from Allah. It is a gift from Allah. So if I keep it to myself, that I would consider like just not awesome. That's kind of like a sin, right? Or like, I have to share what I know, right? I have to share what I've worked hard to learn, because it might help people, if that makes sense, because it certainly helps me. You know, working on getting my girlfriend into the live. Oh, that would be so cool. Tell her I would love to have her here. As far oh, I just read that. It says, oh wow, that is so interesting. That makes so much sense. And I was raised the same. If I'm not allowed to, Lutheran, only speaking on my personal experience, which wasn't good. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. But yeah, so like when I was raised Mormon, I was very much like told that like God is the Father, like the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, like confusing, bestie. Like, that is the most pagan shit I've ever heard. And then like I literally was just like so distraught, because like most people are gonna be like use, well, they're obviously gonna use the pronouns like he and him with God, because like that's just like the dominant pronouns in the languages that like the books were delivered in. But like people don't have any sort of like comprehension skills, right? So like people are gonna like read things literally, and that's the problem. Like, yay, Evangeline Moonrise, welcome to Daily Dose of Dragon Feather. So happy to have you here. But this is kind of like why I practice, like, you know, Islam and witchcraft. But like the witchcraft that I practice is, again, not like the witchcraft that is defined in the Quran. Like, the best way that I could explain the witchcraft defined in the Quran is like baneful magic, and also like petitioning deities type of thing, that kind of craft. Also like feeling like you need to sustain your deities to sustain you. That's considered shirk or like associating partners with Allah in the Quran. The witchcraft that I'm doing is more of the crafty side of it, right? So like I am crafting experiences for myself in order to help me, I guess, shift my trauma, or help me process my trauma in a way that things like therapy doesn't work. Things like even prayer doesn't work. Like, as much as I love Islam, as much as I love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will never, like, it'll never be the same as like journeying with dragons and journeying with deities, right? That is just personally how my practice works. And I'm just here to share how it works in my faith, how this works with me, because it's just something that is really important to me. Islam is incredibly the center focus of my life, and just because Islam is the center focus of my life doesn't mean I'm not a witch anymore. It doesn't mean that I don't practice witchcraft. And also, everybody's a sinner. So if you want to point out my sins of how maybe my witchcraft and Islam are like not mixing the best, hey bestie, that's on you. As far as I know, the Quran says that the hellfire will be filled mostly with people from the sin of their tongues, meaning that you better watch what you say in this life. It matters. And I come here on this channel and I only want to share things that would please my Lord. I only want to speak in a manner that would please my Lord. I only want to respond to the hate that I get in a way that would please my Lord, because that is all I'm here to do in this life. Like, I only seek the pleasure of Allah. And I think that a lot of people might feel very anxious about me saying it like that, but like the truth is like, if you don't understand, that's okay. Like, this is what's beautiful about religion, because like some of the ways that you experience your religion or your spirituality or your like faith-based practices, I'll never understand it because I never experienced it firsthand. And this is why I fundamentally believe that we need to just shut the fuck up and let people like practice and do what they want and express themselves how they want, because the second I try to tell you you can't be a certain way, whether that be religiously, whether that be your sexual orientation, whether that be your gender identity, anything, right? Like, whether that be if you want to like believe in certain things, like more like I'm more like an omnist than anything. If you don't know what omnism is, it means that like all of the religions have truth to it, and you believe that all of the religions have truth in it, but no religion is the one truth. The only reason why I don't label myself as an omnist instead is because I genuinely believe that Islam is the truth, okay? And I'm not saying it's the truth for you, I'm saying for me. This is just my life, okay? I'm saying for me. When I read the Quran, I felt like it was the truth. I felt in my heart and soul, this is the truth. This is the word of God. I will follow this because I believe this is true, right? And not everybody believes in God innately. Like, not everybody has that yearning for God the way that I did. And like, that's totally valid too. Like, you're a human being. Like, you're allowed to be your own unique individual self. Like, and I think people really miss that, right? Like, and they'll also see like they'll see like Sharia law, like in like Muslim countries where they like have Islam within like the legislation, which honestly I think that is not, I think that's haram, okay? Because it literally goes against the fact that Allah guides who he wills. So I think that there's just a lot that goes into it that people really don't take the time to sit and study, and that's like really what I've taken the time to sit and study over the year that I was in the closet, because I, one, wanted to make sure I knew what I was talking about, two, wanted to make sure that I was being respectful, three, wanted to make sure that I had enough education to be able to, you know, answer people's questions. It's really that simple. It's literally that simple. It's literally yourself and your God. No, literally, JK. Literally, factual. That's how I feel about religion too. Heathenry is the truth for me, and the deities, especially Freya, fills the void for me. It's different for everyone. Exactly. And like for me, like even if I disagree with people, like for me to be like, oh, well, guess what? You're like actually not wrong. Like, guess like why you're like not right. Like that automatically makes me the asshole. You see? Like anyone who's trying to like, you know, type out specifically how like, oh, like, blah, 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 these keyboard warriors saying, blah, 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 you can't, like, do anything, like, you can't mix these things together, blah, 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 blah. Like, wow, you got a lot of time on your hands, girlfriend. Like, I don't really know what else to say other than, like, salam. Like, peace and blessings be upon you, you know what I mean? What kind of witchcraft you're doing being a Muslim? The only healing tool is... Ooh, how do you pronounce that? Ryukia. It also works like magic, but halal and realistic. Is your work related with Quranic verse? Yes, my dear friend. I think that's exactly what you're talking about. I'm still like, please forgive me, you guys. I'm still like doing my best to learn all the like Arabic vocab. But like, that is what my dragon guardians ultimately wanted me to move towards, because I still work with dragons. I know that might be a gray area for some like Muslims and some witches, but like, just gonna be honest about my craft, okay? Just gonna be honest about what we do here. And the dragons tell me my magic, my witchcraft is supposed to only be done with Quranic verses, and only be done in Arabic moving forward. In terms of like the chanting, right? Like the speaking and stuff, when it comes to like my voice. But when it comes to like certain like practices, for example, like when I like cast a spell, like I'm not conjuring any supernatural entities in the sense that like I'm not relying on other deities, I'm not relying on other spirits for like anything. I don't rely on, say, the crystals having a supernatural energy. I don't believe that. I believe they're rocks that just have different associations and have a literal like crystalline structure on a molecular level, because that is scientifically proven. I think that's a miracle, right? I just think crystals are really beautiful, but like they're all just tools, right? Like that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for us to engage with. Like Allah says, this world is for us to experience for a time and to enjoy, but it is a test of faith. And while we're here, we gotta like do our best to not do certain things, because when we do, it hurts people. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I hope that helps. So you've been learning Arabic. Yes, Richard, I have, alhamdulillah, which is also literally Arabic. But for those of you guys who aren't aware, like the praying in Islam is always done through Quranic verses. So the prayers that you learn in Islam and the way that you pray in Islam is like literal verses from the Quran and like parts of the Quran that you recite. That's what the Quran means actually in Arabic. It means recitation, I believe, or like reminder. It's either a reminder or recitation. I got it now. Your dragon guardian is a good Muslim jinn. Yeah, so that is kind of what the Muslims view my dragon guardians as, is like good Muslim jinns, which I think is really funny, because the dragons that I work with are just different. I don't know. The best way I can describe it is that like I don't like I shit talk the dragons, right? Like I talk shit about them, like they're assholes, okay? Like they're like friends, right? Like it's not like any different than like, you know, a relationship that you would have to like familial or family way, but the only difference is like I don't like chat with them in the way that I would like chat with like my friends. Like I don't like turn to them the way that I would turn to my friends. I don't like seek them out. Like I used to seek out the dragons and now I don't. You know what I mean? Maybe we call them differently. No, I think that's very, very possible, JK, which is why I find this so fascinating. Because the first dragon guardian that I ever had, I found out is an angel dragon, and when I was a little girl, this dragon told me that it had no free will. So imagine my surprised Pikachu face when I am a full-grown woman reading the Quran, and the Quran is like, did you know angels have no free will? And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what? That blows me away. Oh my gosh, Christina! Richard's girlfriend has joined the chat. Hell yeah, welcome, girlfriend. So super awesome to have you here. It's almost like an elder who listens when needed. That's a great way to explain it, Evangeline. That is a great way to explain it. And the thing is like, pickle chips reminds me what's important, right? Like, and so do my dragons, right? Like, the dragons tell me no God worthy of worship besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They do not accept supplication. The dragons would leave me if I tried to worship them. And I know that is the case for a lot of dragon witches too. That's actually something that really sets us apart from like other witches, for example, is that and I'm not all of them, please understand, like there's a lot of dragon witches that still like actually worship dragons. But I'm saying like there's a like majority of them who don't worship the dragons, which makes it kind of fascinating. So that is very fascinating to me. My team is mostly celestial and or angelic dragons, it seems, but never dragonfae yet. Ooh, fun. Yeah, that's another thing that I definitely should deep dive again, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. And I don't ever follow like these other deities or like the dragons before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's not how that works. They are the ones who, you know, encourage me to study Abrahamic religions. The celestial dragon guardian that I work with, Pickle Chips, he's the one who tells me to read the Abrahamic faiths. He says I have to read the Quran, I have to read the Ethiopian Bible, and I have to read the Talmud. So we'll get there, but like this is like a lifetime journey for me. And I think people in today's day and age, they'll think that witchcraft is very much like a snappy thing to do. It's very much a quick process, and no, learning takes time, actually. Yes, I am learning the craft now. No, exactly, and it takes time. Like, and don't ever be like judge yourself for where you're at on your witchcraft journey, or where you're at in like your journey with Islam, or like your religious journey or whatever, because like at the end of the day, like it is your journey, and it is your life, and you are not supposed to be perfect right here, right now. You are simply supposed to be here right now, because where you are is perfect. Does that make sense? Like, that is the perfection in this life, is how everything is imperfectly placed in harmony. That is so beautiful. And something that Islam has taught me is that when you actually study this world, you can just see that there was intelligence behind its creation. Like, look at the pictures behind me on the wall. Do you think that the Mona Lisa was just, like, happened by chance? Or do you think that some intelligent craftsman painted it? You know what I mean? When you look at all of the beautiful intricacies of this world, do you think that all of this just happened by chance? I mean, sure it could, but the probability of that is just so unlikely from a mathematical reasoning standpoint. Like I'm telling you guys, like, physical things I can prove, okay? And that's where I'm coming from, which is why, like, I'm like, no, it makes sense that there's a creator and that I am a creation. Like, it makes sense that this life was created for me to enjoy. You know what I mean? Like, and that brings me peace. And for some people, they don't resonate with that. And that is also valid. And I'm just here to just learn about both of it. You know what I mean? I want to learn about all of it. I said my Shahada in 2009. Oh, mashallah. I said mine in 2023. What did you think of the Mary Magdalene book? I'm still reading it, and it is absolutely changing my life. I think that so many people fundamentally misunderstood Jesus's teachings. Peace be upon him, honestly. Hi, I'm Pagan, and I know some about witchcraft. All I hope is you're not doing any bad spells. Oh, no, of course not. We don't do bad spells anymore. I used to, though, and I'm more than happy to talk about them because I used to do some really nasty magic. But part of being Muslim is that I don't do that kind of craft anymore, right? If that's not what my magic is for, that's a waste of my time. As a Muslim, any of my magic directed towards another human being is a waste of my time. As a Muslim, my witchcraft is always directed towards finding a way to cope with the things that I've suffered in this life and to help me be more present, to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's so simple. I'm so serious. I'm so serious. It's very, very, very simple. Zura, I found you just today. I would like to interview you on an Islamic channel. I think lots of people will learn from your story. How can I contact you, dear? Oh my gosh, that is such an honor. Please hit me up on my email. You can either message me on Instagram as well, but the best way to contact me is on my email, which is azuradragonfeatherofficial@gmail.com. I think my email is on my channel, but if it's not, I'll definitely add it. But the best way to contact me is genuinely through Instagram or Discord for now. But there is that. So I would absolutely love to be interviewed. That's truly, truly a dream. I am so sorry you went through that. I feel you went through the abuse. Oh, I feel you. I went through the abuse too. Yeah, no, I'm sorry to hear that, Christina. But see, this is where witchcraft comes back in my life, because let me tell you something. Men did horrible things to me with their free will, okay? And Allah saw that. Allah was with me when I went through that. And he saw that. And with my free will, instead of hurting other people, I choose to practice witchcraft, to remind myself that regardless of what these men did to me with their free will, I am still pure. I am still innocent. I am still beautiful and worthy of love. And that will never be a sin. Never. Never. Oh, congrats, Azura, for you and your engagement. Thank you. I appreciate it. I understand that, and I'm just a white warlock. I love that. I consider myself Wiccan, but I need to do more research. No, exactly. And it's always about, researching, always about understanding. And this is why, as much as I love Allah, I still follow the dragons, because the dragons tell me to learn about every type of religion, every type of magic, every type of faith, everything, every type of people and how they believe. The dragons say you'll never understand unless you learn. You'll never understand. But it says, my whole life I was quitting these forbidden science, but as a Muslim, I didn't dig deep. No, that's totally possible for a lot of people, and honestly, what a lot of people do. Can you explain why you like to do this? It's not a like to do this. It's more of a survival. I have to do this, or I will want to kill myself. Does that make sense? These practices that I do keep me on the planet, and they keep me sane. In the sense where I can have a conversation and I'm not like, I haven't lost my mind, right? I've lost my mind a little bit in my lifetime, and I almost ended up in like inpatient therapy a couple times because of my mental health conditions. And the one thing that really pulled me out of these mental health issues were Islam and witchcraft. So that is why I do this. So it's not really a like to do it. I don't think anybody would really choose this life that I have lived. I have used dragons, and I have used witchcraft, and I have used the false idols or the false gods, or just any sort of insert any deity from anywhere ever. I've used them as tools to survive. And some people would consider that disrespectful. I disagree. I feel like that's the entire reason why we have religion as human beings, is to cope with the complex nature of our existence. Yeah, that's just kind of how I dealt with it. And I share my experience because it saved my life, and I'm not ashamed of that. And I don't practice like witchcraft as much as I used to, right? Like witchcraft used to be more of a regular thing for me, but like now it's more of like a last resort if I'm desperate, and it's beautiful that way, and it works beautiful. And it doesn't mean that I'm not a witch. It doesn't mean that I'm any less of a witch than anyone else who is a witch. It just means that my practice is different, and all of our crafts are different. That's what makes witchcraft so unique, right? It's almost like a mental health practice, but it follows and changes where you are in life. Exactly, Evangeline. That's exactly what my craft is. You have to understand that therapy is expensive and witchcraft is free. That is all I'm gonna say. So to answer your question again, why do you practice Islam and witchcraft? Well, my dear brother, sister, friend, therapy is expensive and witchcraft is free. Islam is free. Thank you. Do you use tarot in your practice at all? Yes, I do, Lumia. I use tarot as a introspective tool. So a lot of people will use like tarot as a tool to connect with like deities or gods and goddesses, things like that. And when I use my tarot decks, I will absolutely use them to get in touch with my intuition. It's like to exercise my intuition. And say when I do readings from Hecate, for example, Hecate is the radio frequency that I'm tuning my channel of intuition to in order to interpret said card information. So I'll interpret my messages through the lens of Hecate. That is the only difference, right? Where some people believe that the messages are coming from Hecate, I know it's a hot take, I don't believe that, right? Like I'm not judging anyone who does though, right? Like that's what makes this beautiful, because a lot of people be like, what the hell do you mean Allah created everything? So like, I'm not here to do anything other than like share like my path. You know what I mean? It's really, that's all I'm here to do, is just share how it worked for me. Introspective tool is a nice word. I like that. I'll have to write that one down. No, it's honestly like, so many people think it's like what's the word? Predictive tool. That's the word. So many people think that tarot is like a predictive tool or like a divine tool. I don't work with it like that. I work with it as a way to interpret my psyche, as a way to interpret my intuition, and to kind of like use it as just like an alternative way to kind of get advice sometimes. But like, I never feel like I have to follow my cards. I never feel like I rely on them. I love them, okay? Like, I genuinely love them, okay? I collect decks, like, I hoard them, okay? It's my dragon hoard, but, like, I'm not, like, what's the word? I'm not dependent on the divination tools, if that makes sense. Yeah, to me, it's like, I need to breathe, for example. That's awesome. No, that's funny. I totally understand that. But like, I don't feel like, what's the word? I don't feel like I need to use like tarot or anything. I use it because I genuinely like want to sometimes, or I feel like guided to. But if I'm going through something like a really big life issue, or if I'm going something that's like truly I feel lost on, that's when I'm gonna go pray instead to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the Quran teaches us that nothing is impossible for Allah. And this is something that has life hacked me, right? So everything is about your mind, right? Like, we're going to take religion out of it, for example, for a second, right? So just like forget your beliefs and like, let's talk about science. Like, your life happens in your head. Like, the way you interpret your life happens in your head. The way you see things is interpreted in your brain. The way that you comprehend things happens in your brain. The way that you interpret people's response to you or the way they treat you happens in the brain. All of it happens in the brain. Your belief systems happen in the brain. All of it's about the brain, okay? And so when we understand that it's all about mentalism, right? It's all about belief systems. What has hacked my life into being better is being able to believe in something like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is capable of doing the impossible effortlessly. I've never had that type of a belief before, where something of a higher power had the ability to do the impossible for me. And now every time I feel like I don't know what to do in a certain situation, I literally fucking forget about it and pray to Allah, and every single time it works out. And you can call me insane. You can call me whatever you like, but I'm just here to share what works for me. You know, and like, that's what works for me. And for some people, their prayers were never answered in like a Christian sense, and either were mine. My prayers were never answered in Mormonism. My prayers were never answered that way. But when I do my prayers in an Islamic way, and I bow down with those who bow down, and I make dua afterwards, every single time I get what I ask for, if not better. Every time. Every time. I love hearing how other people use tarot. I love to use it as a mirror for where I am in the situation rather than reading my future. Yeah, like everyone assumes it is. Yes, yeah. So I would have to say that most witches don't use tarot to tell the future. I feel like most witches use tarot to get a different perspective on life, and that's it. I really believe that. I lost my deck. It should be coming back to me though. I believe in you, DJ. Share us one of the most fearsome, shocking moments with your witchcraft, but I don't want to make you sad for that now. Oh no, you won't make me sad. Let's talk about it. So back in the day when I used to curse and hex people, thank goodness Allah has forgiven me, mashallah. The reason why I know this is because whenever you take your shahada, like, all of your sins previously are forgiven. That is part of the mercy of Allah, and what really drew me to Islam is because of some of the things and some of the decisions I had to make to survive in my life. I'm not proud of them, and now I can know that my Lord has forgiven me, and I will never have to grieve about it. And that has just lifted the biggest weight off of my shoulders that like was literally making me so mentally unwell. So that is why I truly believe that Islam is a miracle for me and for many other people. But I used to curse and hex people, not often, but the people who hurt me, like, I talk about the abuse that I've been through. I've cursed and hexed these people. And one of them I talked a little bit about earlier. I cursed an ex of mine to appear ugly on the outside as long as he was ugly on the inside. And he gained weight, got acne, was horrible, face changed in just a hideous way. I could not recognize him. That's how ugly he became. And before we ended up getting back together, before I met my fiance, he ended up doing a lot of internal work and becoming a better person. Granted, he wasn't the best person because he was still a cheating piece of shit, but he, for the most part, like, he still had the acne, but for the most part, he was like, whatever. And at the time, this blew me away because I had never seen such results in like a practice of mine in terms of like witchcraft. But like, now, you know, as Muslim, I'm realizing that like none of that magic that I ever did worked without the will of Allah and the will of God. And so like, when I casted those curses and hexes, God enabled them to work, and only He knows why. I don't know what God knows, right? So like, these experiences deeply shook me and deeply made me think that there was something more to this, right? And that's why I personally believed magic was so real after that, and I still believe magic is real, don't get me wrong, but I just believe that magic is simply a force of Allah, if that makes sense. But that was like probably the biggest thing, like the most disturbing, crazy experience with magic I've ever had. Yeah, really wild, honestly. But I hope that makes sense. It says, I regularly watch The Quietest Revolution. I believe she is actually Muslim, and the tarot she interprets as insights to emotions through Carl Jung lens. Okay, that's cool. I'm definitely gonna have to check them out. The Quietest Revolution. Here, I'm gonna take a picture of that. Thank you. I'm gonna go look at that channel. What does it say? What Christies do you, us, and I'm 10, so don't judge me, you're nice. Oh, I'm so sorry, I don't think I understand your question. I don't think hex or magic works all the time. I think it's just 1% of the time. It works when Allah wills it to work. That's how it works. That's my understanding of the Quran. The Quran says that their witchcraft doesn't work but by the will of Allah. So that's kind of like where I'm at with that. I think they meant crystals. Oh, what crystals do you use? And okay, thank you, Luna, for reminding me. I use pretty much any crystals that I can get my hands on. Here's one that I have with me. I'll show you guys my purse crystals. This is like, I guess, an impromptu what's in my bag. Here's my purse. Oh no, we lost Potat again. Potat, come back. Here we go. Oh, I subscribed. Oh, thank you for subscribing, my dear. So glad to have you here. So here are the ones we have. So I have Rosie in my purse, of course. For those of you guys who don't know who that is, she's another one of my dragon guardians. I met her a long time ago through this little dragon statue. She's what we would call an object-bound dragon. But here's Rosie. So I have this one. This is rose quartz. She hangs out in my purse with me. This is a rose quartz dragon egg that also hangs out with them, and I keep the rose quartz on her head like that when I meditate because it's balance. It's like balance, right? It symbolizes balance. And then I have a little piggy in here that my dad gave me. For those of you guys who don't know, there are some legends in Welsh mythology that tie pigs to dragons, so definitely look into that if you haven't already. Love it, love it. This one is actually just a stuffed animal but looks like a pig dragon, so obsessed. That one's a squishmallow. I have 3 crystals and 1 obsidian stone. That's beautiful. I mostly keep like rose quartz on me when I go like out and about, but I also have like some random ones. I have my crystal for Tiamat with me. This one is my crystal dedicated to Tiamat, which is just some lapis lazuli. I feel like lapis lazuli is like the crystal for Tiamat, at least in my practice. I don't know what you have in your craft, but that's for me in my craft. And then I have some carnelian because every girly has carnelian on them. This is my carnelian. It has like a little druzy pocket. It's honestly really a cute little palm stone. And then I always keep some black tourmaline with me. I just love black tourmaline so much. Love it. Love it. And then the one, I always keep a dragon egg with me too. So we have this one. This one is a chrysocolla dragon egg, and it is so beautiful. So beautiful. So I use like pretty much any of the crystals I can get my hands on. But again, my view of crystals is pretty much just like, you know, they're tools for us to help us connect to the divine. That's literally it, to help us connect with ourselves, to help us learn, to help us grow. And that's just kind of like how I interpret them. And some people interpret them differently, and that's, you know, their prerogative. And honestly, none of my business. So you don't understand paganism or Islam then? No, so you don't understand witchcraft then, because I'm not pagan by definition. Thank you. Have a good day. I've been drawn to fluorite a lot recently, and I can't figure out why. It's a beautiful crystal. I love fluorite so much. Okay. Absolutely beautiful crystal. I personally like rainbow fluorite the most. The most, my friends. But yeah, so it's really just it's really just for, you know, me personally, and like I don't owe anyone an explanation, right? Like I only come on my channel and share my journey with you all is because like I feel guided to do so, and I feel like speaking my truth like helps a lot of people, and I know that it does because they message me about that, and that's all that matters, right? Like this life is nothing but a test, and like what I do in my life has nothing to do with you, okay? But the way that you respond to the way that I do things in my life has everything to do with you, and you will be held accountable to that, right? Like in Judgment Day, if you believe in that, right? But like what you do in your practice, none of my business. You know what I mean? Like how you choose to believe, how you choose to worship, that is totally your life. That is your test. You know what I mean? It says everyone's religion and craft or spiritual journey is so personal. You can't say if someone does or doesn't understand. Exactly. Like I just like everybody understands their craft in their own way. Like you could never understand another person because you are not that person. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, words have meaning. Yes, they do. Yeah, no, this person doesn't understand what's going on. Poor guy. MashaAllah, brother. Salam to you. But yeah, guys, like it's like people don't understand that like language does matter. You know what I mean? And like Islam, all that means is peace through the submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I bow down with those who bow down. I pray 5 times a day as much as I can, and when I'm unable to, I still remember my Lord Allah. And on the times where I struggle with the horrible things that I've been through, that's when I practice witchcraft in a symbolic way to help heal me, and there's nothing sinful about that. I do not associate partners with Allah. I do not invoke others with him. It's really simple, and people who think that it's like this complicated thing and I have to like do all of this like mental gymnastics to make it work, like honestly, you clearly don't understand. Like it's literally so simple. Like Islam has simplified my witchcraft. Islam has simplified my practice in the sense where I feel grounded more than I ever have. And I'm simply here to share that journey with you guys, you know? Like, so I'll never just say horrible things to people because it's none of my business. Like, I'll never presume to understand what people know or don't know because that's none of my business. You know what I mean? Those who are not accepting to anyone's journey definitely haven't opened up any of their chakras vibe. I love seeing you on my feed. I don't think it's that complicated either. It's like similar to how there are Christian or Catholic witches, exactly. But for some reason, a lot of people lose their mind the second that you add Islam into it. So I don't understand. I think sometimes people judge what they don't understand. That's a shame. No, exactly, Tiffany. That's exactly what happens. Which is why, like, I have nothing but love for the people who misunderstand me. They just probably don't even have the ability to perceive me correctly, and that's totally not my problem, and I wish them the best, and I will never, ever, ever judge people for how they judge me because it's, again, none of my business. I just feel sad for people. Like, I'm just like, wow, like I remember when I was in that position, when I had to like, you know, tell people that they were this or that, or when I had to like, you know, say, oh, you don't understand this, just because I felt like I wasn't good enough inside myself. And so because I know that, like it's just something to be sad for other people. It's not something that I should ever, you know, take to heart, and it's not something that you guys should ever take to heart either when you see it on the channel or anywhere else in your life, or if you experience it yourself. Like, you know, like I am not who you think I am. Like, you are who you think I am. And if you think I don't understand what I'm doing, then you don't understand what you're doing, and that is sad for you. Sad for you. Gotta go sleep. Almost 1 a.m. over here in Sweden. Thank you for sharing your practices with us through your journey, and thank you for always speaking up for Palestine. Always, Psychodelica. Free Palestine. Doom Kitty, it's so good to see you. Welcome to Daily's DRAGONFAETHER, my darling. Everyone practices in different ways. It's probably because you don't fit their image of Islam, Middle Eastern person, but any race can believe in any religion. Yes, as long as it is an open religion. And it is very adamant that Islam is for all of humanity. That is something that I love about Islam, is that it's like, no, you are more than welcome, always. Like, that is like the actual entire point, right? Is that it's a mercy on humanity. And to presume that like Islam wouldn't fit into a witch's life is wild to me. That just sounds like very close-minded and very ignorant to the way that different people practice around the world. And, you know, everybody has to understand, like, my Islam comes first, and like I know that might confuse some people who are witches and who practice witchcraft and who work with other deities and don't practice like a religion, but like I'm just here to let you guys know that like my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always come before like anything else in my life. It comes before dragons, it comes before my fiance, it comes before like my work, everything. Like, and that's because like that keeps me grounded in my life, right? Like when I prioritize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above everyone and anything in my life, that has ultimately made me so much more peaceful in the sense that like I don't feel like I'm lost anymore. I feel like Allah found me and I will never ever be lost again. And that is something that is such a blessing. Like, and the only thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can really test me with now is the loss of my loved ones and the loss of my health. And that will be just what it is to live a life as a human. Like that is just what we face as we grow older. We lose our loved ones, we lose our health until we die. Like that is this life, okay? And like I find peace, I find mercy, I find regulation, I find safety in Islam. And I also find peace and safety and security in witchcraft. And there will never ever be anyone on the internet who will ever change me, okay? And like I am not here to say that I know the truth, I found the truth. I'm not trying to convert anyone. That is not my place. Never will it be my place. I'm not here saying follow what I follow. No, I'm saying this is what I have developed to survive in this world. And I want you to know that that is the whole point of what religion is. That is the whole point of what faith is. That is the whole point of what spirituality is. It's about being in this world. It's about how you exist. It's about how you view this world. It's about how you experience your life. That's it. And if people don't understand, then they are the ones who are not worth your time. Those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. And I live my life by that, which is why I also say, mean what you say what you mean, but don't say it mean. And I'm not trying to come up here and say mean things or say like give people back the vitriol, because that is exactly what Islam teaches me not to do. Islam teaches me that vengeance belongs with Allah, and therefore I never need to worry about anything, for I am already successful. Like, I'll never be one of the losers because I found Allah. And I feel so blessed and so privileged and so honored by my Lord. And I simply want to share how that's changed my life for the better, because my channel was always about like magic. And who would have thought that the source of magic was God? Like, I didn't know that. Like, that's how it works in my practice. And like, just because that's true for me doesn't mean that I'm here to tell you that like you're wrong for how you believe if it's different. Like, I honestly don't care if you don't believe what I believe. I'm just so happy that I finally found a belief system that grounded me, that helped me feel like I can cope with what I've been through, that enabled me to heal my mental health, that enabled me to be a human being, that enabled me to contribute to society, that enabled me to come back to this channel. All of it. I sent a question earlier, but I think it got buried. What drew you to practice Islam in your practice? What about it called to your soul? AKA, what about Islam drew you in particular to practice it? So the way I like really truly was compelled to start learning about Islam was through Palestine. I saw all these people losing everything, including their families and their children, and they were praising God and saying, all glory to God, and God is enough. God will suffice me. God is enough for me. I've never seen faith like that in my life. I didn't understand it. I didn't know how that was possible. And I thought that like I had already figured it out with dragons. I was like, no, man, like my faith is unshakable. And then I see that and I literally was like, I don't even understand what faith is. I don't even understand what it is. Because I know that if I was faced with something like that, because I have been faced with something like that, I completely went right into questioning the dragons. What? You know, and so when I learned about that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to read the Quran. So after seeing the Palestinian faith through the genocide of Gaza, I picked up the Quran and I started reading. And then when I started reading, see, I was raised Mormon and I always believed in God. That never left me, even though I left Mormonism, my love for God never left me. So when I found Islam and I started reading it, I already realized I was naturally Muslim already by the way that I believe. The only thing I needed to do was take my Shahada and start practicing. You know what I mean? That's it. It's really simple. It really is. And then, now I prioritize, my Islam. And if I didn't, pray 5 times a day, I'm not going to pick up my wand because I just don't feel like I should. That's me, though. That is Azura Dragonfeather, okay? Like, that doesn't have to be your practice, okay? Like, that doesn't have to be your experience, okay? Like, I always believed in God, so I always wanted to learn more, but I was also socialized as a little girl to believe that Islam was an evil religion and Muslims were terrorists. 100%, just being honest, okay? That's how I was literally socialized, if you will. And so I really had to take a hard look into that belief when I saw what was happening in Palestine. So Allah really is the best of planners, and may all of the Palestinians get the highest levels of Firdaus, because they deserve that. Firdaus is like the highest levels of paradise, for those of you guys who don't know. You don't need to convert someone, just do what you are doing. Allah's plan is beyond our imagination. Your stories will turn someone into truth, especially those who are in a dilemma. May Allah reward you for joining today, my friend, because your words have just sincerely touched me in reminding me that I'm doing the right thing. Because we lost Patat again, because like I get a lot of hate for just what I believe in, and I always have, and I'm just always rejected for that. Just always have been. And like, I've never been trying to convert people. I've never been trying to tell people that they're wrong. Never trying to tell people that it's my way or the highway, or that I have the truth and I'm trying to sell you a course. I've literally just always gotten on this channel and was just curious to see if magic was real, and was curious to see like about different religions, and curious to learn about the world. And like, honestly, like, how could that be wrong? And I know that there are so many people who have faith in God, especially in the witchcraft community, that have been so deeply traumatized by their religious upbringings that they don't even know how to unpack their faith in God without melting away and losing everything that they've worked to build themselves up to be regulated. And like, I just want to let every witch know, if you were raised in a religious household that God was forced upon you in a way that made you hate God, you're valid. If you were driven to paganism, witchcraft because of that, you're also valid. And I do also encourage you that if you have never read the Quran and you are a witch like this, that you should read the Quran, because reading the Quran healed my relationship with God. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I could not do it without it. Could not do it without it. Do you think it's possible to achieve the same level of faith and trust with a dragon, in your opinion? I mean, it's something I've been working on with my dragon guardian to achieve, so I'm curious. Doom Kitty, personally, no, because like, this is just my personal experience though. Like, I'm just gonna answer you as honestly as I can. I've worked with dragons for a long time, and the reason why I fundamentally believe you will never be able to achieve a relationship with a dragon the way that you do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or with like God the creator, is because dragons leave you sometimes. That's the nature of dragons. They have their own lives to live. They are their own beings. They're their own incarnations. They have their own experience outside of you, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator, created you to exist. He's always with you. He'll never leave you, regardless if you don't believe in him or not. Like, at least to my understanding of the, Quran, right? And to the biblical teachings that I've studied during my lifetime. Like God is always with us. He's between our hearts and our soul, and he'll never leave us. And whenever we seek him, he'll always be there. And that's something that just dragons don't do. That's just something dragons don't do. Sorry, but what are dragons? So dragons in a spiritual sense are just like another spiritual entity that we have noticed throughout like mythology all across the world. Pretty much every culture or religion or faith-based practice has a, what's it called? Has a some sort of like dragon-esque type of creature, either like a monster or a beast or a dragon, literal by definition. And this is really fascinating to me because it's what actually connects all of us within our religious beliefs, within our faith, within our spirituality. It's actually the biggest commonality that human faiths share is a belief in dragons, or having some type of dragons, right? So they're simply just spiritual like entities, if you will. Some people, like Muslims, will consider dragons jinn or angels, depending on how they act. And it just really depends, right? It just depends on like, you know, which lens you're looking at them through. As I understand them, the dragons are made from all of the elemental energies, not just smokeless fire, the way that jinns are. But again, like, what do I know? I don't know what God knows, and I'm just a girl who follows her dragons, and the dragons led me to Islam. You know, like the dragons were the ones who wanted me to be on TikTok. Like the dragons were the ones who wanted me to, you know, protect what's precious, and that's why I engaged with Palestinians. And because otherwise I just didn't understand, and like the only thing that really like guided me otherwise was just my love for people, and you know, not wanting to hurt anyone. That's always been an innate thing for me. Like it literally sets me on fire when I feel like I've hurt somebody. It literally sets me on fire when I feel like I have like made someone feel like horrible or judged or anything like that, because like I know how much it hurts to feel that. You know what I mean? Some people have said pagan means to worship nature. Well, some people have said, to me, it simply means non-Christian. When you say pagan, what does it mean to you personally? When I say pagan, I mean any religion or faith-based practice that isn't of Abrahamic religions. So Christianity, Judaism, Catholicism, Islam, if that makes sense. It might be a silly question, but is working with dragons similar to working with the spirit guide? Yeah, exactly. They're essentially a type of spirit guide. I would even go as far as to say is like the term is like dragon spirit guide, actually, because that's what it is, right? Like, but like for if you were to ask like Muslims would believe that like my dragons that help me in my practice are like good Muslim jinn, or like they're like Muslims but they're good, like good jinn, right? It is in the Quran, like you're not supposed to like, it's like you're not supposed to work with jinn, you're not supposed to talk with them or anything like that. But like it also says in the Quran that any jinn that helps humans do good deeds are rewarded, and any humans that help jinn do good deeds are rewarded. So there, it's a gray area, right? Like, which is why I feel like it's kind of fascinating that I like to study so much. Are you sure that's something they don't do? My primary dragon guardian has always stood by my side no matter what, even when I didn't believe in her. She is between my heart and my soul in this world. Is that weird? No, Doom Kitty, I think that's just your experience, honestly. Like, I can't speak for your experience, you know what I mean? Like in my experience, the dragons, like they leave me when they test me. That's just how I engage with them, which is maybe why they told me I needed to keep believing in God my whole life, because they knew that it was good for my nervous system. I don't know. But I mean, I'm not like the authority on dragons either. So like, I'm not here to be like, oh, like this is how, like this is the one way and the only way. Like that is so ignorant of me to even presume that I know. The only thing I'm gonna ever tell you that like you shouldn't do is like things that have like literal consequences to them. Like if something's going to risk your mental health, I'm going to advise you against that. But like I'm literally never going to claim that like I know better than your experience, if that makes sense. So where is Victoria Bridges' question? Where is it? I didn't see it. Well, I don't know where it is. Phew, I was worried, lol. No, it's okay. Everybody has such a different experience. Oh, I think I found your question. Hold on. It says, and when you do witchcraft, do you use salt? Yes. Sometimes I do, yes. When did you become Muslim? I became Muslim in November of 2023 in Canada. I took my Shahada at ISNA, which is a masjid in Ontario. I definitely recommend it. I hope that feeling such a way does not culturally appropriate dragons. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Yeah, no, I would tell you. I think if you take the language from the Quran and apply it to dragons, that culturally appropriates Islam, but I don't think that it culturally appropriates dragons. I just think that, like, everybody has their own way of experiencing things, and, like, who am I to judge, right? Like, that makes me the asshole. Like, I'm just curious to hear about your perspective, and I'm only interested in providing a space for you to share that too, because everywhere I've gone and shared my experiences with, people hate me. People tell me I'm wrong, people tell me I'm delusional, people tell me I'm disrespectful, people tell me I'm insert any offensive thing ever. And that's why I created the Hatchling Clan Discord server. Originally it was the Amino, but the Amino is just an app that is dying, sorry. So we moved the clan over to Discord, and we created the Hatchling Clan Discord server as a place for people of all, like, religions, all spiritualities, all faith-based practices to congregate and learn about each other. And we're not perfect, you know what I mean, in the sense that, like, we're covering everything just yet, but, like, we're always expanding and improving upon our server to make it more inclusive, and we're always taking in suggestions from the hatchlings to as well make it more inclusive for everybody. And we also, have roles for you guys to customize the server to where if there's certain things you don't want to interact with on the server, you don't have to have it on your server profile. And so you can really customize it to be just for you. And it's a place where any geeky, cheeky, and freaky misfit can find a place to fit in. And I don't want anyone to ever feel like they are lost. If they feel like they don't know where to start, the Hatchling Clan, I created it for you to have a place to start. It's the first link in the description here on my YouTube channel, in the description of this video if you're interested. I believe the dragon stuffy's name is Potat, like potato, yes. Potat. I love him so much. He's so, like, I don't know, like, look at him. He's just satisfyingly sewed together. I don't know what to say. Is it weird to me how much she, Dragon Guardian, is similar to Allah in behavior? A small section of her name even sounds like his name. It makes me wonder if I should dive into Islam. Doom Kitty, it sounds like she also might be a good Muslim dragon. I don't know. I'm not trying to presume I know things, but because I don't know for sure. But, like, all I can say is that you're never gonna lose anything from learning about another faith or another religion. You know, I say this not to appropriate anything, just that it's just my opinion and observation, by the way. No, that's totally valid. Like, I know that a lot of people have similar experiences with, like, ancestors, for example. And it's really just so beautiful how everybody really truly, like, you know, experiences it differently. And if you ask me, if someone believes in something and makes it real for them, and if you try to deny the reality just because your belief system means that what they experienced is wrong, like, that just immediately makes you the problem. You know what I mean? Like, it's just really important. It's really important. Tinkerbell, I really like her doll. It's so greedy. It says, oh no, I got that question. Okay. How do you feel about Islam and the LGBTQ community? Because I struggle to convert for that reason, if that makes sense. Ashley, I really feel like the way that humanity treats the LGBTQ community is a test from Allah. I think that, you know, everybody has their own journey, and anytime you try to force somebody to be a certain way, that's when you become an oppressor. And that is literally considered one of the gravest of sins in Islam. So I really don't understand all of the LGBTQ hate, honestly, within Islam. I do know that Islam has specifically forbidden anal sex, and we have to not forget the context of the Quran was back in a time where we did not have the tools to protect ourselves from infection or to properly clean up or clean ourselves for something like this. Therefore, it was a very unclean practice, and Islam has a huge emphasis on cleanliness. So this is where purity culture comes from too, is because, like, it was, like, basically taken out of context into being, like, moral purity became the most important thing, where it's like actually being clean is kind of the point. You know, like, being clean is really the point. Does Allah love and accept queer people like me into paradise? If If you ask me, absolutely. Allah allows who he wills into paradise, and it is only him. And Allah says those who remember him, he remembers them. And it says Allah, like those who walk towards Allah, Allah runs towards them. How could he hate you for creating you the way you are? Like, what? I'll never understand. Which is why, like, even as Muslim, I'm willing to die on this hill, especially within, like, the Muslim community. We'll always fight for the LGBTQ community to have a seat at the table, because the reason why is Islam really has a huge emphasis on studying science and being a person of reason and being a person of, you know, sanity. It uses the word sanity, right? And the whole point is that, like, science confirms that gender affirming care saves lives. You know what I mean? So I think it's a test. You know what I mean? Like, why am I going to judge somebody ever? Why am I going to try and force somebody to be a certain way? Why am I ever going to, you know, tell someone they're wrong or condemn somebody for who they are? No. I genuinely feel like that is a sin to do that. Who are you asking her not to believe? I don't know. Where's the question? Can you read? I don't know what you mean, Victoria. Cannot believe it. I hope what I said makes sense. Stephanie, what'd you say? Don't know, this might sound, no disrespect, just because they're offended, it doesn't mean it's offensive. Two very different things. And I feel like people need to remember that. No, you're absolutely correct. Like, so many people, like, will consider you being offensive just because they're offended, and, like, that's not reality. Like, just because you're offended that I said something or I do something a certain way doesn't mean that what I'm doing is inherently offensive. Like, it's very important. It's a very good clarification, Stephanie. We love that. Very, very good. Can you read Victoria Bridges' last text? I don't know what you said. Sorry. It says, Azura, don't you think LGBTQ is against natural law? No, I don't, because literally you see it all around the natural kingdom, my friend, my brother, sister. You will see male giraffes have sex with each other. You will see female, like, penguins have sex with each other. You'll see male penguins have sex with each other. There's all sorts of that, right? And then let's not forget that, you know, Allah literally created intersex people who have both genitalia, who express differently. Let's not forget people who have, like, female bodies, right? Like, let me talk about, like, me, right? So, like, as an autistic person, there's this, like, androgen insensitivity that I have as someone who's an autistic woman, right? That means I'm going to produce more testosterone in my brain, and the only thing that makes us male or female, expressive-wise, is hormones. I will die on this hill, okay? I will die on this hill. It's not against natural law. So I think that people need to really just chill a lot about how people choose to express themselves. I think that, you know, the examples of what a good man is and what a good woman is in the Quran are beautiful. But I think that it is asinine to believe that everybody fits into a binary when, like, literal science just shows that there's a spectrum. And science shows that gender affirming care saves lives. And science shows that when you accept people for who they are, they literally live healthier lives. Like, I'm not going to just disregard science just because, like, anyone said so in a book. That's especially so long. And I know that might be a hot take, especially as a Muslim, but I'm not the only Muslim I know that holds this perspective, and that's simply why I share what I do in that regard. But I'm not, like, encouraging people to, like, you know, explore being trans if you don't, like, inherently feel that way. I feel like that's offensive, right? Like if you genuinely have, like, gender dysphoria, like, you are valid. You know what I mean? Like, I think that that's something that, like, we need to hold space for. And I think that the way we treat LGBTQ people, the way we speak to them, and the way that, you know, we feel superior above them because of insert whatever religion or insert whatever belief system, I feel like Allah is watching us and he will judge us accordingly on the day of judgment. And if we are cruel to the people of the LGBTQ community because of what the books say, and we are cruel to people for what they choose to believe when they are not hurting anyone else, that is what I believe is a sin. I believe that becomes territory of oppressing people, and that's just awful, okay? And I want to make it explicitly clear on this channel that I will always fight for the rights of the LGBTQ people. I will always fight to make sure you guys have a safe space to be yourselves. And I will also hold a safe space for you to explore Islam, to explore witchcraft, to explore anything, as somebody who identifies that way. Because first of all, it's none of my business. Second of all, I would never want to just hear a label that someone identifies with and then judge them accordingly. I feel like that's rude. And then I also just know how much it feels to be misunderstood, how much it feels to be hated for who I am, and how much it almost made me take my life when no one else supported me because of how I was different. And because of that, I will never, ever, 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 ever hate on LGBTQ people. Yep, that is how I feel on that. My late wife was called a bigot just because she was straight. That's wild, Richard. I'm sorry that you lost her for your loss. That's so sad. The Quietest Revolution, the content creator I mentioned earlier, I also know is LGBTQ friendly, if not by herself. Yeah, that's amazing. I definitely got to check out her channel then. In your opinion, do you think Allah accepts people from other spiritual paths into paradise? Like if he's chill with the whole thing, there was never just one path to God thing. Okay, first of all, I don't know what Allah doesn't know. But as the way that I understand it from reading the Quran is that no one will get into paradise without Allah's mercy, and Allah always chooses who he wills into paradise. Always. It's none of my business, it's none of your business, and the Quran is simply a reminder and guidelines to live your life. And that's it. It's really simple. It's not a dumb question, Doom Kitty. Totally valid, totally intelligent question. Validating your parking, okay? Because I think a lot of people have that question when it comes to this kind of thing. And that's all I can say. You know what I mean? That's all I can say. The only thing that I can really encourage people is to just be a little bit kinder to each other. You know? Thank you. She passed in 2020 from a fast-moving cancer. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Richard. May she be in a better place now, and I'm sure she's still with you, honestly. Thanks for being a safe space for LGBTQ. I'm Pan, and I've always scared that the creators that I watch are going to end up being hateful. It's just nice to have a safe place. Yeah, and I don't care who hates on me for that. I will take every single hate from every single corner of the face of the planet if it means that I can provide a safe place for the LGBTQ community, and I do not care who hates me for that. In Islam, you can't hurt anyone no matter what they are and what they believe. But just to make sure you don't follow them, but still show mercy to them, not to hurt them, because Allah never said to do so. Yes. You know? I think that the LGBTQ conversation is a very nuanced conversation because I do have some friends who identified as lesbians for a while, and it was purely based on the trauma that they faced, and they unpacked their trauma around men in therapy, and then they started experiencing attraction towards men again. But there's also some people who just literally have never ever, like there's also some like women who are born who literally just never been attracted to men, and that is totally valid. Okay. Like, I also am a huge believer of, like, I don't know why people want to make it something that's, like, so, like their whole identity, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's just a part of who we are, and, like, people want to, like, make it so much bigger than it is. People want to, like, make it their whole personality, and, like, it's great to, like, feel, you know, like you identify with something that resonates with you. That's amazing, and I definitely encourage people to do that, but I also encourage balance, right? And we're also so much more than, like, how we identify, like, in our gender. We're so much more than who we choose to love, and we're so much more than that. Like, there's so much more to being a human than just that, and I think it's just a part of, like, humanity, and it should never be, like, it should never be used as, like, this tool to, like, get people on a gotcha, right? What? Like, it should never be like a gotcha. Like, what? You know, it's just another slice of the pie, you know? My dog died today. I'm so sorry, Victoria. May your doggy feel better in the place where it is now, but I will say that I'm sure that your dog is still with you within here. When I lost my cat Keisha, I felt like she really never left me, and when I pass away, I feel like she'll be there waiting for me, and I hope that your doggy's there too. But I got suspended from school because I got in a fight for standing up for LGBTQ. That, honestly, wear that with a badge of honor, because that's wild. You provide a safe space for people in general. Oh, thank you, Richard. I really try to, because I literally have never had, like, a safe space for, like, my beliefs in my life. That's a whole reason why I created my channel. Because I really wanted to talk about witchcraft and magic and dragons, and no one in my real life at the time gave a shit. They all said I was weird and crazy and blah blah blah, insert any offensive thing ever. And I made the channel to hopefully find people like me who wanted to talk about things that I like, you know? So that's just kind of where I'm at. And I really hope that this video could help some people who may be a little confused about not only Islam and witchcraft and God and all of that, but I hope that it can, at the very least, provide an alternative perspective and an alternative, you know, possibility for what life can look like for some people. And I know so many of us witches deal with so much religious trauma, and that was me. I am you. And so I really encourage anyone who deals with religious trauma from like Christianity or Mormonism or Catholicism or any like religion that was like Abrahamic Christian version of the religion, I highly encourage you to read the Quran, because it healed a huge part of me. And my love for God never left me when I left Mormonism, and even when I've been like, you know, practicing witchcraft for over like 2 decades, like I need people to understand that like my love for God still never left me, you know? Oh, also, one last thing about the quietest revolution. She was the social media person that continued to post about Gaza and things were happening and stood up for Palestinians before 2023 as well. MashaAllah. I'm gonna definitely go subscribe to that girl, because that sounds just like amazing. Her IG story posts informed me so much before the long form content about things happening. Oh, interesting. Yeah, she sounds like definitely somebody I want to tap into, because if your witchcraft isn't to protect what's precious, if your witchcraft isn't for helping people, it's just not. It's just not it. It's just not it. If your witchcraft isn't all-inclusive in the sense of like your witchcraft is meant to coddle you, it's meant to numb you, you're doing it wrong. Your witchcraft should always enable you to face your pain, face your fear, and ground you in reality in a way that enables you to still show up despite the impossibilities that you face. That's it. And witchcraft was created as a way to get our power back, more than anything. Which is also why Islam was created, to get their power back. Which is why I think that, you know, I'll definitely be doing a video on how, like, the parallels between witchcraft and Islam, because they're so much more similar than they are different. And that is a huge reason why I do what I do on this channel. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I am starving. I'm so hungry. I've been fasting today for Ramadan. And we have, I want to say like an hour and a half left before I break my fast. Oh, I'm so thirsty. You don't understand. You don't understand. I'm so thirsty. But I am gonna go get ready to go to the masjid for breaking fast and for Ramadan, and I will definitely be back soon. Thank you so much for the epic daily dose of Dragonfeather. Hell yeah! Thank you so much for tuning in, Doom Kitty. It's always a pleasure having you here. But yeah, I'll be back very soon, if not tomorrow, and we will be back to talk more about it. And I will also be still doing videos on dragons too. And I'll still be making the same old content that you know and love, my friends. The only difference is that now I'm going to be out of the closet as Muslim too, and that's it. That's the only difference. Bye, Azura. Love you. Oh, you're so sweet, brother. Have a good day. I'm not fasting today, but hope Allah help you with it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm honest. Not drinking water is part of the fast. Yes, Tinkerbell, it is. Yeah, so like the whole part about fasting in Ramadan is just to deprive ourselves from worldly desire, to focus on our worship and remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be grateful for the blessings and for the things we do have, to give to those who need, give zakat to those who need it, give food to those who need it, all of this. Will the live be available to watch afterwards? Yes, all of my lives will always be available to watch on my YouTube channel after the stream in case you missed it. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Yes, and to know how poor people live. Exactly. Thank you. It's so important for us to remember that there are so many of us who are forgotten because we don't have the money or we don't have the resources. And that's why we celebrate Ramadan the way we do, because nobody gets left behind in Islam. No one. Okay? So much love for you guys. MashaAllah for joining. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. But until next time, stay geeky, cheeky, and freaky, little hatchlings. Blessed be and Kodafis, my dear loves. See you soon.